Harry Styles took the stage at Saturday Night Live for his monologue and delivered a bold, playful response to long-standing accusations of queerbaiting that had followed him for years. The moment unfolded in front of a live audience filled with cheers and laughter as the former One Direction member addressed the topic head-on, turning what could have been a defensive moment into one of the most memorable and light-hearted segments of the night. He stood confidently under the bright studio lights, microphone in hand, wearing an outfit that blended his signature eclectic style with the polished edge expected of a hosting gig on the iconic sketch comedy show. The crowd was already buzzing from his introduction, but the energy shifted noticeably when he began speaking about the scrutiny he had faced regarding his personal expression and public image. Styles opened by reflecting on how, in the earlier stages of his solo career, observers had fixated intensely on the clothing choices he made for red carpets, music videos and performances. Many critics and online commentators had labeled his affinity for traditionally feminine or androgynous fashion elements as queerbaiting, a term that refers to the practice of adopting queer aesthetics or signaling without actually identifying as part of the LGBTQ+ community. He recounted this period with a mix of amusement and mild exasperation, noting how the attention on his wardrobe had sometimes overshadowed his music and artistry. Rather than shying away from the controversy, Styles leaned into it with sharp wit, delivering a line that immediately silenced some murmurs in the audience and sparked others. He pointed out that people seemed to assume they knew everything about his private life simply based on appearances, exclaiming that they did not, in fact, know everything about him. The delivery carried a cheeky tone, as if gently chiding an overly presumptuous parent figure, which drew huge laughs and applause from the studio crowd. He continued by describing himself as tremendously boring in his everyday habits, poking fun at how fans and the media often pretended to find his personal interests fascinating simply because he was a celebrity. This self-deprecating humor landed perfectly, humanizing the global superstar and reminding viewers that beneath the glamour, he was just another person navigating fame. To illustrate his point about preferring this kind of attention over worse alternatives, the screens behind him flashed a now infamous paparazzi photograph of Prince Andrew, captured after his release from custody related to connections with the late Jeffrey Epstein. The visual punchline was timed impeccably, eliciting roars of laughter and gasps of recognition from the audience, who instantly understood the comparison between Styles' relatively tame public persona and far more scandalous celebrity headlines. It was a clever way to pivot the conversation, showing that while his fashion choices had invited debate, they paled in comparison to genuine controversies that plagued other public figures. Transitioning smoothly into promotion for his latest project, Styles expressed genuine happiness about returning to the spotlight with a brand new album titled Kiss All the Time, Disco Occasionally. He described the record as a vibrant mix of upbeat disco rhythms blended with occasional slower, reflective tracks, capturing the essence of romance and joy that had always defined much of his solo work. The title itself became fodder for more jokes as he quipped about the appeal of constant kissing, only to immediately clarify that he did not, in fact, engage in kissing all the time in his real life. This setup allowed for a series of increasingly flirtatious and humorous interactions with cast members who appeared behind him on stage. First came comedian Chloe Fineman, who stepped forward during his mention of watermelon sugar vibes before exiting with a comically disappointed expression when he downplayed the constant kissing idea. Her brief appearance added a layer of playful chemistry that the audience adored. Styles then elaborated on the positive side of kissing, emphasizing that it could be wonderful when shared with someone who was skilled at it and possessed a genuinely good character. As he spoke these words, comedian Sarah Sherman made her entrance, lingering just long enough to build anticipation before also walking off in mock disappointment. The escalating pattern kept the monologue rolling at a brisk pace, each cameo heightening the comedic tension. Finally, he delivered the punchline about kissing being especially appealing if the person had a particularly attractive physique, at which point comedian Ben Marshall, aged 30, strode onto the stage with confident swagger. The two men bantered briefly about Marshall's notable rear end, referring to it humorously as a wagon back there, which prompted more laughter and playful audience reactions. What followed was the headline-making moment. Styles and Marshall turned toward each other and shared a full kiss on the lips, right there in the middle of the monologue. It was spontaneous, theatrical, and executed with perfect comedic timing, leaving the studio audience erupting in cheers, whistles, and sustained applause. After pulling back from the kiss, Styles looked directly at the camera with a mischievous wink and declared, "Now that's queerbaiting." The line landed like a mic drop, cleverly flipping the entire narrative on its head. By staging an actual same-sex kiss in such a public, unapologetic way during a major television event, he effectively dismantled the accusations that had dogged him. The gesture was bold yet humorous, signaling that he was comfortable enough with his own identity and expression to engage in the very act that critics had claimed he was only teasing. It transformed a potentially divisive topic into entertainment that celebrated fluidity without needing to label or explain further. The audience's response was overwhelmingly positive, with many viewers later taking to social platforms to praise the moment as empowering and refreshing. This SNL appearance was not Styles' first time confronting the queer-baiting conversation. Back in 2022, he had already pushed back against similar claims during an interview with Rolling Stone. At that time, fans and critics had noted that his publicly known romantic relationships were exclusively with women, including high-profile pairings with Olivia Wilde, Taylor Swift, and more recently Zoe Kravitz. Styles had responded thoughtfully, explaining that he did not believe he had ever truly maintained a fully public relationship in the way people assumed. He pointed out that paparazzi photos capturing him with someone did not equate to an intentional choice to broadcast his personal life. That earlier statement had been measured and reflective, focusing on privacy and the pressures of constant speculation. The SNL monologue, by contrast, took a far more theatrical and defiant approach, using comedy as the vehicle to shut down the narrative once and for all. Throughout his career, Styles has cultivated an image that deliberately blurs traditional gender lines. From his early days in One Direction, where he was the member most associated with flamboyant accessories and nail polish, to his solo era filled with floral suits, pearl necklaces, and gender-fluid styling on album covers and tours, he has consistently challenged expectations. Supporters argue that this authenticity has helped normalize diverse expressions for young fans worldwide, while detractors have accused him of profiting from queer aesthetics without claiming the identity. The kiss with Ben Marshall served as a direct rebuttal to those critics, demonstrating that Styles was willing to engage in the behavior he was accused of merely hinting at. It also highlighted the absurdity of trying to police someone's personal expression through rigid labels. The monologue segment overall showcased Styles' growth as both a musician and a performer comfortable in sketch comedy. His ability to weave personal reflection with timely humor, celebrity cameos, and visual gags kept the energy high and the laughs consistent. By the time he wrapped the bit, the studio audience was on its feet, and the moment quickly trended across digital platforms as clips circulated. For many, it represented a full-circle moment in Styles' journey from boyband heartthrob to boundary-pushing solo artist unafraid to address rumors with creativity and charm. The entire sequence underscored that his public persona remains one of openness, playfulness, and refusal to be boxed in by assumptions. Whether through his music, fashion, or live performances, Harry Styles continues to evolve, proving time and again that he controls his own narrative on his own terms. Expanding further on the cultural context surrounding the event, the queerbaiting debate has long been a flashpoint in entertainment, particularly for male celebrities who embrace elements traditionally associated with queer culture. Styles' case stands out because of his massive global fan base, many of whom identify as part of the LGBTQ+ community and have found inspiration in his style and openness. The SNL kiss moment resonated deeply with those fans, offering a celebratory rather than defensive response. It invited viewers to laugh along while subtly challenging preconceptions about sexuality and performance. The inclusion of multiple comedians in the bit also demonstrated collaborative humor, turning what could have been a solitary defense into a group celebration of wit and comfort with intimacy. Styles' album promotion within the monologue added another layer, teasing listeners with themes of romance and disco energy that align perfectly with the playful kiss. Tracks evoking constant affection and occasional introspection mirror the light-hearted yet meaningful tone he struck that night. The contrast between his self-described boring personal life and the extravagant stage persona only amplified the charm, reminding everyone that celebrities can be both relatable and larger than life. The Prince Andrew photo callback served as a masterclass in topical humor, grounding the segment in current events without derailing the focus on Styles' own story. In the broader arc of his career, this appearance reinforced why Styles remains a compelling figure years after leaving One Direction. His willingness to experiment musically, visually, and now comedically shows an artist who refuses to stagnate. The kiss with Marshall was not just a punchline but a statement of confidence, executed so naturally that it felt organic rather than forced. It invited reflection on how public figures navigate privacy, speculation, and authenticity in the digital age, where every outfit or interaction becomes fodder for analysis. By choosing laughter over confrontation, Styles diffused tension and created a memorable television moment that will likely be referenced for years. The monologue as a whole celebrated freedom of expression, turning potential criticism into communal joy and proving that sometimes the best response to scrutiny is simply to lean in with humor and heart.